CateCast, and our topic this week, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Now, we should note, first of all, there are some significant naming issues here. In the Jewish version of the Old Testament, which it has various names depending on who you talk to, the books of Chronicles are one book of Chronicles, and they are the last of the historical books according to the older Catholic way of doing things. 1800s had the books of Chronicles 1 and 2 separated into two books, but they tacked on Ezra and Nehemiah at the end and made 4 books, all named after Ezra, which I'll talk about in a second. And then in our modern numbering, we have the book of 1st Chronicles, the book of 2nd Chronicles, the book of Ezra, and the book of Nehemiah. And so there are 3 entirely distinct ways to kind of figure out exactly what we're talking about today. So we're looking at either the book of Chronicles, the books of Chronicles, or 1st and 2nd Esdras, depending on what century you're watching this in. So the name, first of all, comes from St. Jerome. St. Jerome was, of course, taking the Old Testament in large part from which was called the Septuagint, which was a translation that was simultaneously conducted by about 70 scholars, hence Septuagint, in the Greek city of Alexandria. And so he actually did have the original languages, but he didn't have access to all the original texts. And so the Septuagint named this book, or the book of Chronicles, the Paralipomenon, which I'm not going to ask you to remember for the test, which just means the stuff that got left out. Because really, they got to this book, the translators, and were like, this is stuff that's pretty much all covered elsewhere, but, it's stuff that's also, just we're picking up some little details here and there. So it had that name at the beginning. St. Jerome didn't like that because he understood there was a reason that things were being repeated, and I'll get to that a little bit later. So he called it the Chronicon, which was just kind of his way of talking about the Chronicles or the story of this particular moment in history. And really that word itself just kind of implies an ordered list, a chronicle. But, it is what it is. So that brings us that gets us through the basic naming. And so in our structuring, as I indicated, this is going to kind of bring to a close most of the history along with Ezra and Nehemiah. We are going to have 2 other books that are historical, but are just kind of their own separate category. Judith and Esther don't really fit any kind of category. They're just salty women who get done what need to get done. They're more of a Michael Bay action movie kind of a subsection of the Old Testament. We'll get to those, though, when we get to them. In terms of authorship, the book reads, as certainly to experts and to a lot of amateurs as well, like it's written by a single person. And in fact, the book reads like it was written by a single person, almost like what we would think of today as a kind of diocesan appeal, right? It reads like someone is preaching a sermon to experts and explaining to them why to the temple. Oh, and by the way, we're having a big temple rebuilding project, and so if you're interested, tribute.